You're listening to the OMG Hour.
And welcome everybody to episode number 287 of the OMG Hour, recording on March 1st, 2018. I, of course, am your host, Sean Evans, otherwise known as Zion Tane.
And I am Tico, Mr. Second Place. I get to announce myself second today.
You do?
Jeff
Wow.
didn't come.
So Jeff is not here. I think those of you watching on YouTube are like, who's that guy? That's not Jeff. No, we have Kevin Harwood with us, who is the creative director of the Station game that just came out last week. And Jason, why did I just call you Jason? I have no idea.
That's nowhere in the notes. Nothing.
Kevin, you were on our show just over a year ago, about a year and a half ago?
Yes, I was.
And we talked about the Station game then, and I backed the Station game on Kickstarter right away, and you're back. Because the game is out.
I'm back and it's out.
So we're going to talk about your game a little bit later. You have agreed to actually take over for Jeff today. Jeff is unable to join us. So we're going to jump right into our regular show. And for those of you listening to the audio, I am not making our guest record separately. So you are getting the raw audio from the video this week. Defects and all, as the case may be. So Kevin, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us again. Do you play games when you're actually developing games?
I'll be honest. The gaming habits change completely. So you go from pleasure, you go from experiential, atmospheric games into the PUBG kind of depths. So that's where I've been for the last while.
You've been in PUBG, have you?
Oh yeah.
How good are you? Do you have you got the chicken dinner yet?
Oh, chicken dinnering, I'm getting obese with my chicken dinners.
That's awesome.
The funny thing is, I got hooked up with this amazing little Discord crew out in a different part of the country, and there was this massive group of guys who play it, not just as a hobby, they play this as, their life. So it's tactics, there's call signs, it is unreal. So I actually just jumped off a game before I came on the show.
Oh, sorry guys,
awesome.
Gotta go record a live show. Then you'll be back, I'm sure.
Who knows, right?
What else do you play? Is that pretty much your pastime right now? Playing some PUBG? Eating chicken dinner?
I recently got a PS4 dev kit for VR. So I've been fooling around with that a lot as well, because I may or may not be working on something in VR. And
I like it.
And so then I've been playing Skyrim in VR, which is something just incredible. I don't know, it's something ridiculously interesting.
How do you find the movement controls in Skyrim VR, though?
I really don't mind it. I really don't mind it. The first time I picked up VR, it was with an Oculus. It's sitting on my desk right now, actually. And I was getting so sick anytime I would touch it, anytime I would go near it even. I called it my vomit simulator. So with the PlayStation VR, I actually find it's really smooth. I'm actually really enjoying it. I can't figure out what kind of play style I want to play as. I keep picking up my bow and just, Legolasing it. So,
right? Yeah, that's the best.
I'm having a blast with that. But I also have another group of guys I'm playing Stellaris with. We play any Grandmaster strategy game, so we're doing Stellaris and Civilization 6. I just can't get enough of those.
Excellent. Awesome. Yeah. I've been really curious about Skyrim VR. I love Skyrim. Huge Skyrim fan, as our listeners know. And but I don't like the point and click movement in VR. Especially in an action game.
Are you talking about the because there's two ways to move, as you probably already know, right? And you've played it in PSVR, right?
I have not played Skyrim VR, no.
There's two ways to move. There's the you can control this little dial which sends you flying across and it'll just jump you 10 feet and you just sort of teleport around.
Yeah.
Or you can do the hold down the button and move around. I can't stand the teleport, but I thought the movement system was pretty good.
Okay,
I didn't mind it.
So there is a smooth movement system then.
Right.
Yes, yeah. The jumping would just be disorienting in a game like that, in my opinion. Smooth movement, then absolutely, then that might be the way to go.
Especially in an action game, you can't teleport and fight at the same time. So that was my holdback in playing Skyrim in VR I didn't realize there was a smooth movement control, like a natural movement control. That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, Tico, let's start with you because
Yes.
you've got a few games you've played.
I did. I've picked up a couple of ones. One that you made me play.
One that I did not make you.
I somehow remember you telling me that I had to play this for the show. So let's start with that one.
To be clear, JJ Mahoney said you had to play it.
Okay, so it's his fault.
Yeah, because of how much we raved about this game last week, and we were so happy that it was on
finally.
Games with Gold, the best game ever made.
Yeah, Disney's Brave is the game that we're talking about, and here's the funny thing, it's actually pretty fun. Like
really?
It's a basic platformer, but it controls well. It's got good camera movement. It's kind of fun. Like I've seen the movie a couple of times with my daughter, so like I'm sort of familiar with the story and stuff, but it's not as terrible as you would think.
You played Disney's Brave. You just had to press the buttons.
I've played like 3 hours of Disney's Brave.
Wow.
Seriously?
So yeah, I played like 3 hours, and I'm probably going to finish it. Like I'm halfway done the game.
Jeez. Wow, Tico.
So I may as well finish it at this point.
Are you going to get 1,000 achievement points?
I might actually. I might. That's one of my things, Kevin. Is I go for gamer score quite a bit, and I will play some really bad games for gamer score.
Yes,
so
yes, he will.
It's nice when there's a good game to play for gamer score as well. So thank you for that, by the way. I appreciate your contribution to my gamer score as well.
Oh, I do what I can. That's what I'm here for.
Pressing buttons, buying Disney Brave. Well, I mean, it is free, so
it is free. Again, you posted and said that I had to pick it up, so I'm like, okay, what the heck? It's not going to cost me anything. I'll give it a try. It is actually not a bad game.
I take no responsibility for your playing this game.
Still, not a bad game. It's for free. I would say pick it up, play it. It's fun. I think I've got about 400 gamer score out of it already.
It kind of reminds me of the Lego games, to be honest with you.
It is. It's a very similar type thing. Obviously not Lego. Like, actually when I told my daughter that I got a Disney Brave game playing, she asked if it was a Lego game right away.
Of course.
So she was expecting it to be a Lego game. But there's like fun little puzzles, and it's basically just, hold down the directional stick to shoot your arrows and X to use your sword, and it's not a bad game.
Okay. You say so.
I do say so. Let's see, Bridge Control Portal. Bridge Control. Well,
first I called Kevin Jason, so we're good.
Yeah,
you're tripping over your
Bridge. Bridge Constructor Portal. So we've been. I think we've played all iterations of the Bridge Control games.
Bridge Constructor.
Yeah, I can't even get it right. Bridge Constructor games now.
I actually really like Bridge Constructor. I talked about it last year. It was a great physics game.
It is a fun little game, and this one here adds. It's the same game that adds the two things it adds. It adds portals, so you have to travel, in and out of the portal in order to get through the level. But it's basically, you've got GLaDOS in there as well, so it's really fun. It's a cute little game.
It's a better looking game. It actually has much better looking graphics, I think. It's a little... it's fun, obviously. It's still got that sort of quirky thing going on with it, but it looks much higher res than the previous.
Yeah, and the humor's in there. The first time that you go through one of these acid pools, GLaDOS tells you that your picture is going to be put on the employee's death certificate.
Good.
As cause of death. But yeah, fun. It's a fun game. Great physics game. Again, it does pay a lot of attention to real physics. So you can't just, I'm just going to throw this up. I'm not going to support these bridges and hope they disintegrate pretty quick on some of these harder levels.
Well, what I like about this is that the portals they're not just in front of each other. Like portals all over the place, and there's multiple portals on some of the levels, right? So you have to go through multiples in order to get to the end. There's a couple of levels with 4 or 5 of them, and you have to go through, I have to jump through there and then make sure I land on that thing in order to jump through this portal to pick up enough speed to get through this one to land on the at the exit tube. This is a real merge between Bridge Constructor and Portal, because the same physics apply. The faster you enter a portal, you come out at the same velocity.
Exactly.
Right? So you can apply that to your bridges.
And you have to make sure that you do that in some of them because you have to clear some obstacles sometimes. It'll shoot you out of the portal. You have to like clear an obstacle and then build your bridge for your vehicle to land on and go through that way. So yeah, it's I'm actually really enjoying that. I don't think I'll get the full 1,000 on that because
they get hard.
They get really hard. Like once
Kevin,
you get
have you ever played these games?
You know, I've played. It came up into my queue lately, and I wasn't actually sure. Can you guys? Was Valve the one who made the Bridge Constructor portal game?
No, it was Head Up Games, but it was a partnership with Valve.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I'll have to pick that up. It sounds good. I got obsessed with the iOS version of bridge construction games. Those were just unreal.
Yeah.
Well, it's the same game. So it's the same people who made Bridge Constructor. They then made a deal with Valve to make Bridge Constructor Portal. So same idea, but now you add the portals into it, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah. And it controls really well on a console as well. It's very intuitive to use the controller to set these things up.
And this might be a little bit more meta, but I'm actually finding that that's a conversation, or that's a sentence that so many people are saying these days, that this game, which was a PC-oriented game, or maybe specific for another platform, now functions really well on other consoles or other systems. I think that's a really cool innovation that we've got going here.
No, absolutely.
This game is also available on the Switch, and I think it would be a perfect game for the Switch. Because this is the kind of game that you don't want to just sit down for hours on end and play. You just want to do one more level. You just do a level and then you're off. It's a perfect portable game. This kind of game right here.
And touch controls as well. Touch would obviously make this. It works really well with the controller, but touch would probably be a lot of fun with this as well.
And how many hours do they say you can get out of it?
I think there's 90 levels, so it depends on how good you are. For me, it's going to be an infinite number of hours because I am never going to finish this. But people who are really good at these sort of things and put them together really, really quickly, can probably, I'd say, get through 90 levels in 4 or 5 hours.
That's awesome.
That's cool. That's really cool.
Yeah, I think most people will spend way more than that on this.
I think we should let the video watchers watch your. How you propel them into the ending here, because this is actually pretty cool how this works. I mean, you've got them going down a ramp into the red portal, but they're picking up speed because they're going downhill, and they literally fly through the air to the exit
on the other side,
which is awesome. So you didn't actually have to create an entry ramp, as they go through, and it's so cool. It's awesome.
And you have to make sure that you don't jump through any of the other ones, too, because then it'll fire you into those laser beams, which are not good for your vehicles.
No, laser beams typically don't do well for vehicles, so you're right.
Yeah.
Awesome. So, you recommend it then?
Yeah, absolutely. Super fun game. And then I also played The Darkest Dungeon.
Yeah,
now, this is a game...
What the heck is this?
This is a turn-based... roguelike dungeon crawler.
Oh, you just lost me on roguelike.
I know you're not a fan of roguelike, but it does it really well because when your characters die, they are dead. You can recruit new heroes and stuff like that, but I'm actually finding I really don't want them to die. So you can go halfway through a dungeon and realize, I'm really out of health, and you can leave the dungeon and go back to the town and recoup and re-energize and stuff like that. But your characters get stressed as they go through the different areas. So if they get hit by traps, or if they lose battles, or if you exit a dungeon without finishing it, they become stressed. And as they get stressed, they get certain things like selfish. For example, one of my guys, he got stressed out and he got selfish, so he kept trying to steal all the treasure for himself. Stuff like that. And when you go back to town, he's still selfish. So you have to actually go, he was the paladin, and so I had to go to the church, and he had to pray at the church for a round in order for him to
as we do in real life.
Yes,
right?
Yeah, and so that cured him of that effect. But it does tell you if you leave your characters with those status effects for too long, they can become permanent as well, because it costs gold to go to the church and takes time and all of that stuff. So you may not want to do that. So
you said if a character dies, that character is dead, but you can get more characters. So it's
you can
kind of
recruit more characters.
It's like XCOM that way.
Yeah, now, very, very similar to XCOM, yeah.
Can you lose all your characters and it's game over?
I think you can continue to, there's a campaign and you can continue to recruit new, there's I can't remember what it's called. There's a wagon there, and that's basically where you recruit your people from. So you can dump money into that to make sure you're recruiting higher characters and stuff like that as they go through. And so that will continually regenerate new characters that you can pull into your party. You can have up to nine characters in your character inventory at one time, but as they die, you can replace them with others.
So you can only have 4 on screen at a time.
Yeah,
that you're going through. It's very 2-dimensional looking.
Yeah,
it's definitely. I mean, it's a really dark looking game. It looks good, but very, very 2D. Like literally, almost like these cutouts on a background. You know.
Yeah, I really actually enjoy the art style of this. It looks really neat. This game actually originally, I think, came out for the Switch.
Really?
I think it came out for the Switch a couple of months ago, and so now they've ported it, obviously, to the Xbox and the PS4, and it works really well on without the touch control as well.
When you say it's a roguelike, you mean more in the sense of, like I said earlier, like XCOM, where characters can die, but you don't you don't have to start the game again.
You don't have to start the game again. Your characters can die, but it's a roguelike in the sense that, again, they carry status effects back and forth to town and to the dungeons with them. You can upgrade them as you go as well.
Cool.
So, like, I've done this a couple of times. The first dungeon, I got halfway through the first dungeon, realized there's no way I'm going to make it the rest of the way through because I'm going to die. My character's going to die. So I backed out and fled the dungeon.
And it's a turn-based strategy game. It's a
turn-based strategy, yeah.
I like those.
This game has massive cult followings in Vancouver. That's where the studio is based. And I think something about Vancouver, a lot of people joke about how it's probably the same for where you guys are in Ontario as well. But they make a joke in Vancouver that you can't throw a rock without hitting the game developer, and it really is true. Because I was at some meetup or whatever, and I ran into the guy who made Darkest Dungeon, and I hadn't heard about it, but the guy was the nicest guy in the world, and I'm sold on it.
It looks cool.
It looks really cool, and it's really fun. I'm a fan of the roguelike. I know Sean's not a fan of that.
Well, I'm not a fan of the roguelikes that when you die, you start the game again. But this isn't rogue. I wouldn't consider this roguelike. This is XCOM style, where your characters can die, but that's not game over.
No, it's not. It's not game over. You can continue to recruit new characters as you go, and there's all sorts of training that you can do in town. There's the graveyard you can go to visit your the graves of your deceased characters. There's the church where you can go to pray and stuff like that. There's the bar where it's like some of the characters too, like going to the church is not going to de-stress them. So you have to go to the tavern, to the bar. Like if you got like a gruff mercenary, going to church and praying isn't going to do it to get rid of his stress. He's got to go to the bar and drink.
Of course.
So it's really well put together. It's a fun game. It looks cool. Again, your characters as they level up, they earn more attacks and stuff like that. Absolutely return. And again, this is one that I think would work really well on the Switch as well.
Yeah.
But I've been enjoying this on the Xbox.
Excellent. Awesome. Well, I have one game to talk about before we move on and get right into the station, which is why Kevin is here today. This is a game I actually have had for a bit, and I haven't reviewed it yet. It's called Hand of Fate 2. Now, I talked about Hand of Fate, I think, last year sometime. I really liked it. It is a card-based dungeon crawler. Basically, card-based RPG. It tells a story. You get random cards laid on the table out of a deck that you can build as you play through the game. And the card master is basically he's like the DM. You're telling a story, and each card you have choices to make, and then there's you have to roll dice sometimes for a chance to get a success, or you have to fight enemies, and when you have to fight enemies, it is an actual 3D hack and slash, a la like Batman style fighting mechanics, which is really good. It's really well done. I really enjoyed the first one, and they've added more to this one, so now you can have companions go on the fight with you. And cool. And they'll fight with you. In one of the stories, you're actually gathering soldiers from the town. You're saving them from the enemy, and then they join you. So at the final boss, you've got like 8 or 10 soldiers all around you as well. So it's not just you anymore. And it's really good. You've got your dodge. You've got, just like in Batman, you know, if they're about to attack, you get the green arrow above your head. Button. So you can counter, and then you can block or dodge out of the way. Your companions can give you boons as you play, like maybe a healing boon or protect you against melee damage for X number of hits. I actually really enjoy this, and it is a deck builder at the same time. So some cards will come with these little coins on them, and if you successfully get the coin by passing the challenge of the card, that coin opens up to basically more cards to add to your deck. So really cool. It's got a combination of everything in here. Your deck builder, your dungeon crawler, your RPG, and your action platformer. You know, all built into one, all telling a story. Like, it's an actual story going on. You have to decide which path you're going to take. You make decisions as you go. Are you going to go into the forest and save whatever's going on in there? You don't know what's in there. Or are you going to stay with this merchant and provide him assistance? You know, and you decide which you want to do. So it's really cool. It's called Hand of Fate 2. Great sequel to the original Hand of Fate, which I really, really enjoyed. So it's got an all-in-one. It's all one of those games that just kind of takes multiple genres, mashes them all into one, and it works. You know. Yeah. So I recommend it. Hand of Fate 2. So that is basically everything we've played this week. And we have, every week, of course, we have Lost Treasures. We're going to move into that now, and then we're going to come back. And Kevin, we're going to talk to you, give you the spotlight to talk about your new game, finally. So let's move on to Lost Treasures.
Lost Treasures with your gaming archaeologist, Sid Bolton.
Sometimes it's fun to take a lost treasure on the go, and today we've got Lady Sia for the Game Boy Advance for our pick, and this game has more than just portability going for it. Released in 2001 by TDK Media Active, Lady Sia was developed by RFX Interactive, a French developer that made handheld ports of other intellectual properties, but had created Lady Sia on their own. The game is an action platformer with elements of a fighting game. The combat can be quite complex, and the anime-inspired visuals are often cited as the game's greatest weakness, as well as strength, most notably because at times it is difficult to discern the gameplay elements from the backgrounds. Nonetheless, the game moves and plays well, and is quite enjoyable once you get used to it. Lady Sia was popular enough to warrant both a direct sequel to the game as well as a full 3D game that was going to come out for the PlayStation 2 and the GameCube. However, when the publisher was acquired by Take-Two Interactive, all of those games got cancelled and the studio was shuttered. Such a shame. Lady Sia has lots of content, a great boss fight, and all kinds of elements that make it just a little bit more than the average platformer that was available on the Game Boy Advance around this time. If you've never played it, you owe it to yourself to pick it up and give it a try. It's truly a lost treasure that will likely never see a sequel, and that is a gaming shame. Until next time, I'm Sid Bolton, your gaming archaeologist, digging up the lost treasures for you, right here on OMG Nexus and the OMG Hour.
All right, Kevin. Perfect timing there, Kevin.
Perfect timing, right?
It came back mid-sneeze.
So, Kevin, November 2016, we had you on this show to talk about a little game that had just come to Kickstarter. And I had backed it I think I backed it already before you were on the show. But the game is out now. A year and a half later, the game is out. How exciting is this?
It was awesome. It was phenomenal to get it out the door. I mean, something that you don't usually do as an indie team on a first project is, with the resources that we had, is get it onto both consoles and PC with Mac and Linux for a simultaneous release. That's not usually common. So it felt real good.
Yeah, I mean, when the Kickstarter started, it was for PC only, and then maybe console. And when did the decision come that you were gonna actually be able to get the console done for the station at launch, basically for all the platforms?
Ooh. Well, okay, that's actually an interesting story. So, early summer last year, 2017, one of the producers on our project was finishing up on one of his games, one of his other titles he was working on. And he had been working with the console specifically for his title. So he basically said, you know what, let's get the process going. Let's learn as we go, specifically for this engine and for the compliancy issues. So we reached out to the Xbox organization specific for indie games, as well as PlayStation. And we reached out to them, and they said, after taking a look at it, they said, yeah, this looks right up the alley for what we'd like to have on the console. And so they sent out dev kits. And,
Nice.
For new teams, there's that really odd period where you're looking at this thing and going, like, how do I get it on there? So we struggled through for about 3 months. And as we were approaching our initial launch date, we were actually planning to launch end of July 2017. And there was a variety of things that were delaying us. And so we actually, as we started to really get comfortable with the consoles, we said, you know what, why don't we just delay another few months? It's already getting to the really busy season in the fall. Let's just wait until the spring. And so we were working with the PR agency, and they basically said we'd recommend in February sometime. So we just delayed the launch, and we were happy to do so. So I mean, the game was actually done for 6 to 7 months before the launch. It was just sitting there.
Okay. So I could have had it sooner, is what you're saying.
You know what? And some people did. We had so much fun with some of the Kickstarter people. It was a blast.
That's awesome. So, for those who don't know what the station is yet, why don't you give a brief introduction to what this game is?
Yes, sir. Okay, so it's essentially focused around a mystery narrative. It's a sci-fi game where you're exploring an alien civilization, and the whole idea is instead of instead of an alien civilization discovering us, we discover an alien civilization. And so the real questions of imperialism at a galactic level, what do you do when you discover another alien race that's less evolved than you? How do you deal with the imperialism, the stewardship, do they have human rights? What this game digs into is exploring an alien civilization from the perspective of a crew. And so what you are sent to do is, after this space station is sent to research this alien world, you're sent in as a recon specialist to figure out why no one's answering the phone anymore. This big research mission was going on to study what was going on this planet, and you come on board to piece together what happened through the eyes of the crew.
Okay, so it's, for lack of a better term, is it a walking simulator? What style of game would you call this?
Yeah, we're already getting a lot of people tagging it as different things. Walking simulator, interactive narrative, storytelling, mystery, thriller, light, all those kinds of genres blended together.
Yeah, and it really is. I finished the game, and I loved it. I thought it was fantastic. To be honest, I actually went through it twice. There's a lot to digest in this game. I am going to give no spoilers, because believe me, it's going to be easy to spoil this game, so we're all going to be real careful not to. But fantastic. Honestly, I am so happy I backed this game, Kevin. Fantastic. You guys did an amazing job. It's a gorgeous game, too.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much.
Beautiful, beautiful game. Really, really well done. I'm curious, when you started this game, you had a vision. I'm sure you had this huge vision. Is there anything in the game that actually didn't make it? Like, how different is the final product to what you first imagined?
That's a great question. So, some of the things that were dropped along development were polished items which I don't think enhance the story. Our team really came together to said, we care about the story. We care about the pillar of telling a beautiful story. Outside of that, we said, there's a lot of things we can add to make it more interesting, to make it more visually stimulating, to play with audio. But we eventually started to drop things which would have delayed our release or would have been too resource heavy. And so in terms of the core vision, we didn't actually stray that far. I think we actually exceeded the original vision. I'm so pleased with what we produced.
Awesome.
But yeah, it's funny. It's really easy to get into a track where you're so focused around the details of something which aren't actually playing in tandem with the grander vision. So we actually got to a few different parts in the game where we had to drop different elements that were done and ready to go, but they didn't actually work with the story.
Okay, okay. Because you had a very specific story you wanted to tell.
Yeah, you have to. I believe you have to start with the like a mandate, and everything flows from that mandate. So our vision was to tell a really rich story with believable characters in a realistic setting. And so when you start with that premise, it's actually very easy to let all the details flow from that. And so you can get down into the nitty gritties, and you then look back up at the mandate, and you go, well, this doesn't line up with it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Now, what I love about your game is you've made this very, very interactive. Like, there's objects everywhere that you can pick up, zoom in, rotate, even though they may have nothing to do with the story or anything to do with the mystery going on. You've just added such interactivity to this game. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's a real living ship. Like, it feels like it was at one time a real working living ship.
Yes.
That you're exploring, which is great.
Yeah, and there's two. I'll hit those two things that you said there. The whole idea of interactive objects. Now, this to me is maybe the most selfish project I've ever worked on, because this is just the kind of game I like to play. So I just was that vain and said, let's just make a game that I really like.
Well, that's the whole point of being a game developer. You make what you want to play.
So there's nothing I enjoy more than interacting with an environment, picking stuff up, observing how things work together, getting a real sense of immersion. To me, when you hit that flow of being immersed in an environment, that's why I'm in game. That's why I love playing games. So the other element of the living ship, that was critical. And it may seem like that was sort of the set pieces at the very end, and that was the very end polish, but from the very beginning, when we were drafting and designing our document, we actually said, no, okay, each of the crew members, here's their Myers-Briggs personality, here's their backstory, here's what motivates them. We have, Sean, if you read through some of the game design document that would have been passed out to some of the backers and will, in the near future, be coming to the public, we go into, dozens of pages talking about here's each character, here's what motivates them, here's how they interact with others, here's how they deal with time, money, power, here's how they interact with a fully fleshed out character. And then all we had to do was just sit down and go, okay, well, here's their room. How would they interact with their room? Here's what motivates them. How would they decorate the room? How would they organize their space? And so it became so easy to create moments for those characters to be a part of. And what we actually had to do was we had to take a lot of that stuff out because the game became cluttered. The game became just it became where you just couldn't move without tripping over something. And so we found that perfection was the last thing that we took away. As soon as we started to really go, it's not about volume, it's about quality, and so we really toned it down.
That's awesome. I mean, there's just little things in it too. I just love the technology in there. For those watching the video, when I first walked in this room, the stairs came out of the wall and flipped over to become stairs. I mean, tiny little details, Kevin, that you guys have put into this game. The little air freshener on the table that says, you look like you're stressed, so here's some diffused whatever, So, I mean, obviously they have, doTERRA is still in the future, so that's good. And the terminals, you've got terminals in there, you're reading through the email. That's really where you guys are telling the story. Through the actual interaction, terminals, letters, notes for the people. I found it very important for this game to really read through, and just the detail you guys have thrown in there is fantastic. And I think what you liked about this game, I remember you talking about this back when I had you on in 2016, is you wanted this to be a story that lets the user decide what actually happened. Right? So the mystery isn't fully solved by the time you're done the game. You kind of leave it up to the player to determine what they think actually happened. Yes,
that was a really interesting route that we took. And there was a lot of mixed reactions, to be very honest. There were a lot of people who have reached out and been like, I need to know what actually happened, though. You didn't tell us. And I've been like, yeah, that's the thing. And then they get angry.
No.
But, that's what I really liked. When I was working with the main producer on the project, we would talk constantly about story. And we got to the point where we felt like there were all these competing ideas as to what should have been the thing. Because we had written about a dozen different, options as to where the story went, of how this whole thing went south. And we really came to the point of saying, you know what, let's not give a finite answer. Let's let the entire world tell different stories, and it's up to the player to determine who they believe or what they believe really took place.
Now, I have to I have to ask this question: is there a definitive answer, or did you honestly leave it open?
So I have like a very definitive answer. There's been a couple of people who've reached out to me and they go, "Hey, here's what I think," and we just get to have like you figured it out. But
okay.
Yes, there is something extremely explicit, and this is a very rich story. There's a lot to take in.
There really is.
Their storytelling is very three-dimensional in the sense that I'll be very honest. I think it's very easy as a storyteller to get lazy and to just put a thing over there and it talks to you and it says like, here's what happened.
Right.
But when you when you show a story, when you show what happened, and you're not saying, Jeff went down to the mall today to buy some cigarettes, when you actually show the story of what's motivating everyone, and you really have to decide. There's a lot of moments where people do things that are, very gray, and you have to decide if they did it for the right reason, if you trust that character. So again, it's not just reading or the audio logs, or we try to create living scenes where you can actually understand the nature and the character of those people. And some of my favorite conversations that have come out of this have been when people reach out to me and go, "Hey man, I really identify with that, character X. I can just tell that the way he, cares about his daughter is just really pushing him. And I can tell by his age that he probably cares about this stuff because I'm that age. So I loved how players would inject themselves into the characters they most identified with.
That's awesome. I do want to say, because on the video we're looking at the modular aspect of the Espial space station, and is it pronounced correctly? Espial. Espial. And so in the lounge you have a modular model that you can put together in the game, to make your own Espial. And I was actually disappointed you guys didn't make an achievement for building your own Espial.
I'm going to be honest with you. I've probably gotten at least 24 emails to date and it's only been out for 10 days, of people suggesting achievements. And it's really funny because some of them I'm like, let's have a serious chat as a team, and maybe we need to add that in. Some of them have just been hysterical, but no, you're not wrong about that, Sean.
Like seriously, this is why I'm like, okay, I'm going to build an Espial. There's got to be an achievement for building your own Espial.
The people who don't look them up ahead of time, they see something like that sitting there. It's like, well, this has got to be an achievement,
right?
Okay, I can do this. There's got to be an achievement associated with this.
But guess what? There wasn't, and it. I quit. I didn't ever want. No, I'm just kidding.
You have the own personal achievement of knowing that you completed the model, Sean.
Well, I did complete the model twice actually, and the second time through, I made it kind of look like the real Espial. Even though I never really do see or do I see a real model? Yeah, there is a real model of the Espial. Yeah, it's when you first come in. Okay, there was something else I was going to ask, and I just went completely off. What do you want to tell us about this game? What are you most excited about now that it's out there?
Oh, I really love seeing the different kinds of people play through it. So there's so many different kinds of gamers, right? I tomorrow night am going to a Let's Play the Station on a movie screen size TV with a bunch of people who they're in my city. They're just story enthusiasts, and they're not gamers. They just want to play the story because they're all actors. They're all into story, and so they just want to experience the story because it's really not a hardcore gaming game. And it's funny, we've had other people reach out to us who are first person shooter oriented gamers, and they go, it really wasn't what I would have normally played, but there was something in there, and that hit me right in the soul. So it's nice what I've loved is seeing how this is a departure, I think, from most adventure games. This is I've heard some people call it a palate cleanser, which I actually thought was kind of interesting. I think that's what I'm most excited for people to understand about it. To me, these kinds of games are games that I have a core group of friends who are actors or filmmakers or writers, and anytime there's something that's very rich and has a story to tell, I always want to get them together at my place, get a bottle of wine, get a weird cheese spread going, and let's just play this game together and really soak that story up. And so I guess that's really what inspired the game, and that's what I would love for people to do. I would love for people to play it with people. I'd love for people to not just take it at face value. I'd love for people to dig in and sort of have a bath in the station.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah.
Oh my! I keep forgetting. I'm getting right in on what you're saying, and the question I had.
You gotta write this stuff down, Sean. You gotta write it down. At your age, Sean, you gotta write these things down.
I'm getting old. Let me tell you, I'm a year older now.
I actually have a question about is there anything because I played through this and started thinking through where some of the ideas may have come from for the story and the design of the ship. Is there anything movies or based in stuff that already exists where you guys sort of use for inspiration?
Yeah, it's a good question. Me and a few of the core team members, when we were first starting, we created a must playlist, and there was movies, there were books, there were games, and I just devoured them. But then actually during development, I did not bring my head out and check anything new out. I did not look at new games. I didn't start pre-production for other stuff. I just wanted to focus on this game. So, I guess what I'm really drawn to in narrative is something that's a little bit more deep. So, what I love a lot of the fantasy genres, because I think fantasy does a really good job telling a story that's not so explicit, right? Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson. The one about the guy, Game of Thrones. Wise Man's Fear. All of these books, they really are good at building a world and then building characters in them. I find sci-fi lately, I've been frustrated with sci-fi lately in all mediums because it's all dystopian. It's all really sort of downer sci-fi. It's not really exciting. And so we, from the very beginning, said let's make a departure from sci-fi and let's go this progressive sci-fi route where we're really actually optimistic about technology, optimistic about how people play a future in the role of humanity. And that sounds like a really dumb statement. But what I find was so plaguing me was how we were getting a little bit pessimistic in how we looked at sci-fi. So I wanted to sort of walk away from that.
Yeah, no, you really do get that sense. This is not doom and gloom, sort of you're not you're not being chased by some alien creature through this thing the entire time.
Or are you?
Well, I wasn't.
Actually, on that same note, I think you guys have created an amazing atmosphere. Even the sound effects, the fact that during the story, there's a couple explosions that go on. You're like, what's going on, right? And there's a spots where you kind of, as a player, you kind of feel that little bit of fear, what's out there.
Yeah, the tension.
There's a tension, built. Right?
Yeah,
and just how subtly you kind of added that tension. It's phenomenal, right? The first time I went through this, I felt kind of nervous walking into the dark rooms, and of course then the lights would come on, but there's a certain place where you actually force the user to turn the lights off, and then something happens, and I'm like, that honestly, it was awesome, but the first time it happens, you're like, what's going on? And I felt like running and hiding, Seriously, you guys have created an amazing atmosphere here too. Not just the story, but everything about it. You just the little details is really what makes this game. The atmosphere, the music, the audio logs, everything that tells the story, but honestly makes you feel like you're really there.
Yeah, so there was so much there. Thank you for so many nice things to say about it. The part of making the actual station itself feel like it was more of an atmospheric and intense sort of character was by actually treating it like a character. This was something that our producer really pushed really hard in our story process, where he said, treat the actual station like a character. Let it, you need to get to know this thing. You need to actually have an arc of a relationship with the station. And so, that's why a lot of the plot points and the story beats go the way they do, because we wanted to, it's a very nuanced relationship, but we wanted to have that there.
It's amazing. It's amazing. Earlier you were talking about, is it this week or tomorrow you're going to be playing it on a big screen with a whole bunch of people who don't necessarily play games. How is that working? I'm curious how that's going to work. Are you going to play it, or who's actually going to play the game? Are they going to make decisions together, like go do this, go do that?
So I'll be honest, I've played my game thousands of times. I never, if my dream can come true, I'll never play my game again. But the idea is, I actually really love doing this. I've had this probably 4 times in the last month. I love having people over, whether it's at my place or whether it's somewhere else. We just, get some beer and pizza, and everyone sits on the couch, and we've had 2, we've had 10 people just all play. They pass around a controller every 5 minutes or every 2 hours or whatever. And it's really just about, hey, like, did you see that thing over there? Let's go check it out. Or, hey, like, what do you think that she meant by when she said that? And so it's more just of a more communal experience.
Okay, that's awesome. That's really cool.
Yeah, that group experience is a lot of fun to be able to do. I mean, you did that, Sean, with what was that horror game? Until Dawn.
With my daughter.
Yeah. So like that type of experience is fantastic to be able to do with these things.
It really is. Mm-hmm. And I think one last thing we haven't really touched on is that the number of puzzles you've actually put in this game. Like, there are puzzles in here that take thought to figure out. And the way you've hidden things. I was talking to you afterwards that I actually, for one or two of the puzzles, I can't remember, I actually had to look up the answer online because I couldn't get it. And I talked to you, like, this is what I got out of it, and I was like totally off base. When you actually gave me, this is what it means, I'm like, okay, now I feel dumb because it was right in front of me, and I didn't even see it, right? But writing those puzzles was fantastic. Who wrote all those riddles and puzzles and put that stuff together?
So I mean, it was a collective experience. I was one of the more driving forces in the puzzles because I just love puzzles.
Right.
The whole team collaborated on it. The funny thing though, Sean, about those kind of puzzles is I brand those kind of puzzles as intuitive problem solving. It's not pattern recognition. It's not some of the stuff that you would see it's not hidden symbols. It's not what you would see in not modern escape rooms. So the problem with intuitive problem solving puzzles is that some people would pick up the game, and I remember we had a playtester come over, and he beat the entire game in less than an hour because he just would walk up to a thing and just intuitively understood what to do with it. Whereas we had to shut down playtests at midnight when we had started at 6 o'clock because people just couldn't figure it out. And so when you get that kind of spread, that's what we really got into that state of going, like, because I love puzzles that are like this. Nothing to me breaks immersion more than, you gotta hack the door, guys. Hack the door. So let's play some Pong, and you gotta beat the computer at Pong before you can get to that kills it for me. So when we were writing these puzzles, we said, let's actually have you'll notice that all the players really sort of bring you into the life of the crew, and it sort of makes you assume their role for a few minutes at a time. And whether it's spending the time in the maintenance room and you really sort of walk into the shoes of the mechanic engineer, that's what we really tried to do. And those kind of puzzles created such a spread of time that it was so funny. And so we learned a ton. But thank you. I really like those puzzles as well.
Yeah. I think you're right. I mean, I love puzzle games, but my mind goes to the almost... Like, you're right. One of the puzzles was right in front of me. But the problem was, it was right in front of me. And that's why I didn't see it, right? I didn't take it literally. And I think that was the problem, right? I was looking for some magic formula. But you're right. It takes all different kinds to figure out those puzzles. But really good job. What's next for the station? Now it's released, it's out there, you're getting lots of feedback, people are loving it. What's next?
Great question. So there's always just the little gameplay patches that need to go in. Those have been pretty interesting to actually track down. The use cases that people are doing. I swear, I've gotten bug reports where it's like, you know what, if I take my Xbox and pour milk on it, the game breaks. Fix it. So there's been a lot of weird things that we've had to patch, which have been fine. On my board behind me are all the languages that we're going to be patching and localizing into, which I'm really excited about because I basically just as a whatever question, I put it up on the Steam discussion boards, just saying, hey, any languages that anyone is after, and we've just had such support for a few core languages, so we plan to knock those out when we can. We're also tentatively potentially looking at, like, I don't know, VR. But
what?
You can never really know. I mean, I've been fooling around with the idea of VR in the station for a long time because with my Oculus, or as I call it, the vomit simulator, I was loving the idea of just, you can always sort of like jimmy rig a game into VR, and it's not going to feel good, and it doesn't look good, but it will at least be in VR. And this sounds really vain, But the station is the first game that I've ever experienced in VR that I go, hey, this actually feels like what it was meant to do. This actually feels, you know,
it does. As you're playing through it, you start to think it's like VR. You know, thumbs up. You know, for this would be perfect in VR.
This
so like it's like
perfect.
as you're going through, you start thinking as what for at least for what Sean and I do. You know, we start looking at when we play stuff like this would work really well with touchscreen. This thing would work really well with VR. And so as you're playing through that, immediately comes to mind like VR would be perfect.
Oh, I was thinking the same thing as I was playing through it both times. I'm like, I want to just reach out with my Move controllers and pick these things up and look at them, you know, and then, you know, pick up the fuel cells and put them in and then press the buttons with my finger, you know. Just this game feels, Kevin, like it was made for VR, honestly. It's just, it is like this kind of game, and I say this about even things like Gone Home, like any of these what we would call a walking simulator, a game where there's no combat, there's puzzles, but you're discovering a story as you play. Those games are ideal for VR because there's no action, you don't have to worry about fighting. It's just moving through, it's looking at things, it's interacting, you know. That to me is like, that's what VR should be. That's what game I think is almost ideal for VR, is stuff that it's not, you know, run and gun. It's not these super detailed controls. It's just walk through this environment and be in the environment, be an actor on a stage. And honestly, like you guys have got a beautiful looking game that I think would be stunning in VR. Being on that station and looking out into space through those windows, I would be in awe. And especially where the game starts when you're in the ship, you know, out in space and the ship docks. I want to experience that, Kevin, in VR. I want to experience that docking in VR.
Well, yeah, that's going to be really exciting. The VR is such an odd basket because it's just a completely different technology platform. A lot of people were tweeting us and being like, hey, if you get, like, you know, it's Tuesday. I've got, like, if you could have it ready for Friday, just have the VR, just have it.
Just like that. Kevin,
it's just a couple of lines of code. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, just Kevin, just add multiplayer and VR. Just get it in. And so, it's a completely different framework. So we are really excited about checking it out. I'm pretty excited.
Awesome. Now, the world this takes place in. Now, once you're done with maybe VR with localization, are you done with the station, or are you looking this as a world you want to build onto?
So this is the answer my producers always get mad at when I say, I personally can't stand sequels. I can't stand them because... Well,
not sequel per se, but it's like a shared universe.
A world.
You've created
a world.
Do you want to continue in that world?
So I have a random folder on my computer, and it stores all of the game design documents that we have for this project, future projects. I would be lying if I said that there wasn't other projects planned within this universe. But the thing that gets me is it would need to be done very, very as a, you know, almost like we take the rules of this universe and then go over here, because I really want to. Our goal as a team in a studio is to tell really rich, vivid stories, and that requires us to be able to be fully destructible in the sense that, okay, we're gonna try that a little bit like how Pixar does things. They, yes, they have sequels, but they are very divergent in how they approach their stories. And so, there's a lot of stuff we'd love to keep trying with this universe. And there's a lot of stories and themes that we've already been, toying about. But for the time being, we're just gonna let it settle.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So we've got about 7 minutes left in the show. There's a couple of news things that happened this week. And one of them actually corresponds to you because you're a developer. And I'm curious what you think of this. So the ESRB has now said that they want to add new labels to games that label that there's in-game purchases. We've seen this online, like for iOS and Android. We see it all the time now. It includes in-game purchase, and it's right in the details before you buy it. How do you, as a developer, Jeff wants to know, what do you think about this decision for games as a developer? Do you think it would give any game designer a moment of pause to consider if they should give up that extra money just to avoid the notice on the package? So what do you think of the ESRB ESRB now saying we're going to label them as there's in-game purchases for this. That's for everything. We're talking if there's a season pass. We're talking if there's going to be DLC, loot boxes, skins, whatever it could be. That label will now be on the box.
Yeah, I have two answers to this, and I'll try and be as quick as I can on these. I personally find the bureaucracy of the gaming industry to be a little stifling right now. In order to do a worldwide launch, is what we did, was a little bit insane, and there were a couple nights where you just don't go to sleep because you're applying for rating agencies in every country doing it. So you know what? I think that the bureaucracy. I don't think bureaucracy is an answer to fixing these things. I think as a larger meta, we're not seeing bureaucracy deal with issues correctly. So I am personally not a fan of this. However, the flip side of this, which I really am sympathetic to, is when I was going to a couple gaming conferences, I sat down and I was on a like round table with the guy who led. No, I'm not going to say who it was because I don't want to get in trouble. I was with a very big game developer who led some of the largest franchises in the world, and he is not a game developer. He's a brain chemist. He's a microbiologist, or he's a brain chemistry major, and he did his specialization in psychology of addiction. And so he basically said, hey, let's just bring addiction into video games, and let's just let's play on hoarding, let's play on scarcity, let's play on all the things that humans are naturally really vulnerable and scared about, and let's make games around them, and then we'll feed off their addiction. I personally thought that was disgusting. Listening to what these people were saying was absurd. So I really sympathize because I think that you should be allowed to put out any content into the market, and if people want to consent to it and people want to do that, I'm totally fine with that. Now, if they're children and doing whatever, I actually don't know the laws and regulations around what the legality of marketing to children. I've done a lot of work with COPPA compliance with this, the Children's Online Privacy Act. I believe that's already bureaucratic enough. I personally don't think that the ESRB is going, with this new movement to do it, is necessarily tailored to fix the issue. I don't think it's going to fix the issue in the slightest.
It's not fixing anything. It doesn't fix anything other than say this game includes. I mean, it's going to be 98% of every game out there now is going to have this label.
Yeah, it's going to have this extra label.
Every game has DLC or season pass or buy a skin or loot boxes these days. Everything has something else they want to sell you to make extra money. I mean, I think your game is probably one of very few these days that don't have anything extra you need to buy after you buy the game.
Until you add the VR.
Crates. Yeah, except for the loot crates.
Except for all those loot crates, that's right.
I've got. This is not my opinion. This is absolutely not my opinion. But I have heard through the grapevine that a lot of these agencies are not necessarily making these decisions. And this is just a hypothesis. Again, I'm distancing myself from this opinion. But I've heard that a lot of these institutions are right now trying to be very aggressive with virtue signaling and trying to aggressively get themselves as the spokesperson for causes because it allows for more attention to be given to them. Now, again, I don't know about that. I actually really like the ESRB. I find them to be fantastic people. But again, this is very odd to me because I don't think adding more labels is what fixes the problem.
No, absolutely not.
I think it's a cultural problem, right? When you have to get the government involved legally to enforce with, at the end of the day, the police or the justice system, to deal with an issue of consumer products, I think we've already gone off the deep end here. I think this is culturally just a problem where people should support video game companies that are very ethical with how they approach things. I personally don't play any game that requires you to have a potentially infinite number of dollars spent on a game because whether it's Candy Crush or whether it's those games where it's a tablet game and you're conquering armies and stuff like that, and there's a no limit amount of money you could spend them. I don't touch those because you're basically saying that my fun is measured to the amount of money that I spend to infinity and to put on a graph. That's not fun to me. That to me is very close to gambling, and I actually don't care. I think you should be allowed to do whatever you want with that. I just don't want to play it, but I agree. I support other people's right to play it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. No, I completely agree. I mean, listen, I don't care if there's going to be a label on it saying in-game purchases. We've seen that on digital purchases all the time. It said just in-game purchases. Okay, great. But
a lot of people ignore those anyways.
Yeah. Well, yeah. But my issue is that the reason they're doing it isn't fixing anything. right? It's the whole reason they're doing it is because of the loot box fiasco once Battlefront 2 came out. You know, that's really what started it all.
Yeah.
You know, and this is not a solution. Like I said, I don't care about the label, but it doesn't really do anything. It's almost like I think they're trying to just appease people.
Yeah, and this sounds, again, this might be the most offensive thing I could say, but I've done a little bit of, I've had a relationship with EA, and so I'll state that from the very beginning. The first time I sat in their conference center in their Vancouver office, I was looking at their share price. So I was like, what's this company worth? I didn't know. And they were at like $14 a share. I think now they're at like 118, 119, and it was all like, again, I got to be very careful with my opinions in the public. It has been a major push by the current leadership of the company to really focus around microtransactions and new aggressive forms of monetization. That's the perspective. Again, I think they're free to do so. But this sounds, and I don't mean to be offensive, but if people are willing to put up with it, then they can do whatever they want. Like, I'm actually very surprised at how much visceral hatred everyone has for certain franchises and games, and then you go look at their sales figures and you're like, I thought you were mad at this. And then you look at this, and then you look at the critic scores. You look at the lack of societal and social pressure put on these practices. I don't blame EA. I don't blame them in the slightest.
No. People are still buying it.
Yeah, it's exactly sad. I think there's a lot of insidious practices, and you have to focus on like, this game developer believes in these things. I mean, I'm not trying to grandstand right now, but I don't know if you guys noticed this, but there was no swearing, there was no gore, there was no nothing that I would not be okay with having, a 10-year-old child. When I have a child, I would be totally fine to play my game with a very young child, because I think not only the content but the morals and the ethics expressed in that are important. And people, I think, need to be better. This sounds terrible. I think people need to be better consumers. I think people need to recognize what is fueling industry, because where your money goes, the industry will go.
Oh, for sure, absolutely, and it's evident by a lot of the developers and publishers. Is they're doing it because people are buying it. Period.
Yeah.
Right. They wouldn't do it if people didn't buy into it. So, anyway, that pretty much wraps up the time we have. So the other stuff we were going to talk about, we'll talk about it next week. But Kevin, why don't you tell people how they can learn more about the station and how they can keep in contact with you?
Oh, heck yes. Okay, so if you want to check out gameplay trailers, if you want to just see like a moment of the story, if you want to feel a real sense of this is what I'm going to be engaged with, just go to thestationgame.com. We have a gameplay trailer on the YouTube channel. We've created 3 trailers, so you can sort of browse through those. One's covering story, one's covering the gameplay, one's covering more experiential. So it gives you a little bit of a slice of each. And then I'm not much of a social media person, but the Station Game, at the Station Game. And then we also are on Facebook. But Again, I'm just glad we got to chat.
How much is the station on each of the platforms?
The station, okay, great question. So we were actually approached by a lot of publishers, and they wanted to just wrap the game up and ship it and do whatever the heck they want with it. I think they were going to do $20 American for it. We ended up saying no, and we just sold it for $14.99 American. So,
nice.
So that's that.
So probably 20 Canadian then.
It's actually, I think, $14.99 Canadian as well.
Really?
Yes. I specifically was excited to make sure that my fellow Canucks could have a cheaper version on some of the platforms. Some of them didn't let me do it, but on some of them, and if you can find it, then you'll get it.
Awesome.
I can tell you, Xbox is $14.
$14.99.
$14.99 on the Xbox.
Excellent. Well, there you go. That's great. I mean, honestly, $14.99, and you got a lot of content in there. I mean, we're not going to say it's a super long game. It's a great experience, but yeah, for sure, you need to check that out for $15. That's
great game.
Fantastic. Kevin, you guys did an amazing job. I'm very happy that I backed it when I did, and I'm glad that we're involved with it. And it was awesome seeing my name in the credits because I was a backer. That was cool. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Guys, you guys are so generous. Thank you so much for all the compliments.
Hey, no
worries. It was great.
Yeah, it was great. Really was. All right, Chico, take us out.
Yes, all right. You can follow me on Twitter at Mr. Second Place. You follow the show on Twitter at the OMG.
The OMG?
Yep, at the OMG. It's up there written down in case you can't figure out what I'm trying to say. And our gaming archaeologist is Sid Bolton, and you can follow him on Twitter at Sid Bolton. That's Sid with a Y.
And of course, all the show notes and anything we talk about is at omgnexus.com, and on Twitter, that's omgnexus. I am Ziantane everywhere, and that is Xiantayne. If you like us, then give us a like, subscribe, bring all your friends to the channel, get them to like it. We only need 11 more people before we can get to subscribe to our channel and we can get a custom URL. So invite all your friends to come and like our channel. And for those of you not watching live, you can come watch us live Thursdays, 6 p.m. on YouTube, bit.ly/theomgr. Come check us out and interact with us while we are recording. So that is it for this week. Kevin, thank you again for joining us. It's been awesome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, thanks, Kevin.
And we will be back next week. Take care, everyone. You going to say goodbye, Chico?
I did. I went goodbye, and I did the thing that we, and nobody's doing finger guns today.
Okay, goodbye. This has been an OMGNexus.com production.